morning.
Welcome back.
Day 3. Nice to see everyone.
Can we mute everybody?
Yeah. You have to unmute.
Yeah. Yeah, professional to the end.
So we've got, today we've put the title of Everyday Awareness. And we just wanted to kind of open it up, first of all, to questions and comments after yesterday. And then talk about the kind of implications of understanding. Like, I think Dickens spoke beautifully to this yesterday afternoon. This is so ordinary, it's so everyday, it's so easily overlooked. But there are things that start to change in our life that we can start to take for granted, because there's things that I know that I look back upon that I can now do that I couldn't do before this understanding. And like one of those things is sitting here speaking to you guys. Being able to phone up and make appointments for myself rather than phoning my sister who was at university in Plymouth and getting her to phone the doctors for me, or phoning sick to work, and like little things that changed that make life easier. And I know that sometimes now I can take it for granted, and then I'll kind of look back at a video from me as a teenager and I saw the stress and the uncomfortableness and the just feeling totally out of place in my own skin that I used to live in. And I suddenly get filled with gratitude that the life I get to live now. And I think most people that come across this, there's kind of a bit of a before and after, like before understanding and after understanding. And it might be that it's over the period of a year or a few years that we then look back and we're like, wow, loads has changed. Or it may have been a bit more, overnight change. But whatever way it comes for you, with this understanding, with a raise in consciousness, life starts to look different. And I think the beauty and the ease and the stillness that's here, it's like we're sat in it, starts to reveal itself more and more. And I think when I took it off my to-do list to understand these principles and get somewhere, like meeting Dickon quite early on in my journey, like he is just one of the most loving people I've ever met. I remember when he took us for this walk, like someone would be walking their dog and he'd just stop and he'd like embrace them and speak to them, and every person he met he had time for. And I was like, right, when I understand the principles enough, I'm going to be like Dickon. And I'd kind of set myself up, I'd have these expectations, and then you live in a feeling of dissatisfaction because you're not quite where you want to be. And then it seems that over time I've got more and more comfortable with what I've seen and been grateful for the ease that I have. And I may never be like Dickon, that I stop and speak to every single person and embrace them, and that's okay. Like, I can just be me, and all of you can just get more and more comfortable being you. Like, it can be so easy sometimes to, like when people say to you, I want the freedom you have, Dave. And when you ask them what that looks like, it's loving everyone and being happy all the time. So they make up a concept of what it looks like to have understanding and be like Dave. And you're like, yeah, that's not true. And also that's not freedom.
It's not freedom.
And I know that I've allowed myself to feel angry or just different feelings that I used to think weren't allowed. I thought if I understood, then I'd never get angry. If I understood, then this. And we can see that any of our expectations and any of our ideas about what life should look like with this understanding just gets in the way. And I think the less that we do that in our lives, the more we're here and we just be, and that we're built for it, that we can totally manage our own lives. And the ease that's come and the insight that happens is beyond me. Like, I know sometimes when we've given talks, I'll be speaking and I know that everything that's coming out of my mouth is for me to hear again. And I don't even know I didn't even know that I knew it, and then it would start coming out. And I think it's not just for these kind of conversations, it's for life. Like, it's life, it's already up and running, it's already true. We're just trying to point something out that's already present. So it is so much simpler than we think. And I think from my own experience of constantly setting myself up to, when I have a deep enough understanding, when I have the big enough insight, when this, I then miss the moment of it already being true here now. So I just encourage people to, like Sid would often say, just listen for a feeling. Like if you just start to feel a little bit lighter or a little bit more hopeful, like that's the understanding, that's the consciousness raising, that's the awareness, and that takes care of everything. It's when we kind of then get involved in our intellect. Like I remember when I used to try and figure out how to explain to people what the 3 principles were, I'd get completely like tangled up because I can't explain them. They're words, they're noises. But I know that in the first year after coming across this, I would meet people, we'd have conversations, I'd get all my words wrong, but they'd hear something and they'd be like, there's one lady, I was doing a Dr. Hauschka training, which is like a holistic therapy training. And it was probably about 4 months after coming across the principles. And there was a lady there that just sort of took me under her wing. She was about sort of 10 or 15 years older than me. And she's like, I feel like you're my soulmate. And she just was amazing to me. It was the first time I'd ever been like away from home on my own and stayed in a hotel. And it felt like quite a big deal for me. I was only about 2 hours from home. And I tried to speak to her about what I'd understood with the principles. And I felt like I'd done the worst job. And I went to bed thinking, God, I wish I could explain this. I wish I could talk about it. And then about 6 in the morning, my phone goes off and it's Cherie. And she's like, I've wanted to phone you since 3 o'clock in the morning. She goes, I've got to tell you this. And I was like, okay. She goes, I have hated my ex-husband. I mean, I've despised him. She goes, for 20 years, I've hated him. And she said, after our conversation last night, I went back to my room and she said, and I just realised I don't have to hate him anymore. And she said, the relief is huge. She said, I don't have to hate him. I don't have to hate him. And I don't hate him. And she was saying, thank you. And I'm like, God, I thought I did the worst job of trying to explain this. I had no idea that that was the insight she was going to have. And I think it really taught me a lesson of, it can be so easy to want to have the right words, but I was heartfelt and I was inspired when I shared with her. I didn't have the right words. It probably didn't sound very eloquent, but I knew it was true. And I knew that it was not just true for me, it was true for all of life. And I think I said that to Kate, I think she's on, like when we've been doing these videos with Kate of her reflections, she's just got this energy and this aliveness about her. It's like the understanding is alive within her when she shares. And I think that's what comes across. So it is so much easier than we think. Whether we want to share this as a job or whether we just want to share this with friends, it's so much easier than we think. Because if we come alive with it, that's what comes across. And that knowing that everyone is all right. Everyone. Like we've had different stories and different backgrounds, but when the story falls away and we meet in that place, we're the same and we're all right. And it's simpler than we think. Didn't you know?
Didn't mean that. I have this habit of, I'll be just talking away and all of a sudden it'll just come to an end. And I'll go, oh, your turn. And Jen's, what the hell?
Questions?
Yeah, let's have some questions. Has anybody got any questions or observations or realizations? Cole.
It's not a question. I just wanted to share from yesterday, from when that lady Jackie, she asked you about stuck trauma.
Yeah.
Is she on today?
No.
No.
Oh, anyway, when I saw Jackie speaking and asking you that question about stuck trauma, it resonated with me massively. And then your answer was just bob on. So thank you for that, and thank you to Jackie. And then I just want to say that this morning I was lying in bed thinking about yesterday's online thingy, and I realised for half an hour I had no pain in my back. You know, so it just went straight away to what you were saying. That, you know, that if you're not thinking about it, it's just not there. So that was it. I just wanted to say thank you.
Thanks, Colin.
Thank you.
That's beautiful, man. You know, and if we're experiencing the pain, or we're not experiencing the pain, that's coming from consciousness. You know, there truly isn't any separation in our experience. You know, there is no separation between consciousness and ego, ultimately. Rusty must be having a dream. He's just growled. Either that or he totally disagrees with what I'm saying. But he's deaf, so I don't think he can. But, you know, it really is, excuse me. For many people, it throws up many, many questions, just this. And it does bring up things like things that we've learned in books and things we've been taught in school. You know, school, I'm not knocking it in any way, but we get taught things as fact in school. That only later on in my lifetime, things I was taught in school have been completely and utterly disproven. I remember being taught about the Newtonian atom, which looked a bit like almost like a little solar system. Like it's got a nucleus and it's got electrons and protons, I think it is, that spin around. You see, it's generally the symbol for the nuclear industry. I remember asking my physics teacher, Miss Fogdy, is that actually what an atom looks like? She went, beg your pardon? So is that actually what an atom looks like? She went, you questioning my teaching methods? No, I just don't know. Is that what an atom looks like? Get out. And since I've become interested in like life and quantum physics and things like that, you know, the quantum physicists say if you could possibly see an atom, you would realize that what you're looking at would be a shimmer. They say it would be like a spherical shimmer, where the more magnification you placed upon it, the more you would realize you look right through it and that there is no solid matter there. And that is what the whole world universe is made up of according to quantum physics. That everything is ultimately made of nothing. There's the Ram Dass book, he speaks about becoming nobody. Who is nobody? Well, that's no thing, becoming no thing. That is everybody's truest essence. Sounds terrible. I'm no thing. Everybody's no thing. Everything's no thing. But no thing and everything are both identical. Because when somebody is no thing, they can be anything at the same time. That's how we show up. That's how we show up with love sometimes, how we show up with gratitude sometimes. Sometimes we show up with anger and frustration, fear. If we weren't already a blank canvas, an infinite potential, which is what all things are. Again, according to quantum physics, you speak to any quantum physicist, they say that energy is infinite potential until it collapses, just like our minds. The mind is infinite potential until it collapses into a potential of a thought. And you see that this, from Sydney Banks would say, from this great nothingness comes everything. In this divine mystery of life, in this divine mystery of stuff. And this is the missing part of our being that I know for myself, I'll speak for myself, my life was very, very much an endurance. And I really don't feel like I'm alone when I say that. People endure their lives. I just want to be. I remember sitting down on I remember just thinking to myself, I'm going to go and see a clairvoyant. And all I want to do is, I just want to say to this clairvoyant, I just want to say, don't tell me anything about my future. But please, will you just let me know if I'm ever going to experience true happiness? That's all I want. I just want to be happy. And I never did. And I never needed to, ultimately. Because for whatever reason, after listening to a conversation around this subject, I found it. It emerged from within my being where it always is. And it became the forefront of my experience. It became my life in that moment. And the only thing that I can describe about what happened in that moment is I cannot describe it. But that essence is more real. I knew in that moment this is more real than the reality that I'm experiencing right now as Dave in this lifetime. And it lies at the heart of all people and all things. It is the ultimate perfection. Everything in creation is perfection. Every single moment is perfect. And no, it doesn't look like it to us. It doesn't look like it to our intellect, that the world is perfect. It really doesn't. You know, we're always trying to fix the world. We want people to be different. We want people to think like us. And we want to fix the planet. We want to fix people. We want to find the solution. There is a solution. And it's when people start to find the missing piece of the puzzle. When people stop staring blindly at creation. You know, we can look as infinitely inward as we can outward. We can look as infinitely inward within the being as we can outward out of the being. It's all an infinite thing. It has no end. We can just take our own mind, for example, to realize this. When you start to realize the mind is infinite, you start to realize that the experience that we're in now is a temporary manifestation of our mind. And when people start to catch on to the nature of reality and they start to realize reality is a constant, reality is a constant. But the expression and form it takes as an experience is always a momentary, temporary reality. Why? Because the mind is in a constant state of flow. It's always changing. Throughout the day, we go through all kinds of experiences. Sometimes, I don't think there'll be a single person on this screen that we see now that hasn't gone through something in their life where they thought, I'm never going to get over this. I'm never going to make it past this. This is going to destroy me. Only for, without effort, and over time, that experience comes to pass and is simply a memory. Without effort, it changed. This is not something that we're encouraging anybody to do. We're not telling anybody. Jen and I are never telling anybody to do anything. This is not a doing process. This is a realization process. And the realization just happens. You don't need to go looking for it. Because I can guarantee you one thing, you don't know what you're looking for. You know, we get many people who come and they say they're searchers, and we go, okay, you're a searcher. What are you looking for? Now, those who are probably closer to the truth would go, I don't know. And then you get the people that come and say, well, what I'm looking for, what I know, what I think, what it looks like is when I find this thing, I'm in constant communion with God. You already are. You can't find it because it's not lost. You're trying to find something that was never misplaced. You are it. And like Jen said, there's people who come along and go, I want the freedom you have, Dave. And like, all right, what does that look like to you? Well, like Jen said, you're always happy and you love everyone. And I just said to that person, that's not true. I'm not always happy. I don't always love everyone. But I am free to experience that. Freedom isn't, and I said to him, the freedom you've kind of dreamt up as my kind of freedom is ultimately a prison. That's not freedom. To think we should always be happy is not freedom. It's a trap. Freedom is all experience. To be free to experience all feelings. To be free to experience all thoughts. But with understanding. When somebody wakes up and they realize that reality is entirely a psychological experience. Psychological, so again, sounds really scientific. All science is a study of God. There's no dualities in this. When somebody wakes up and realizes that the most harrowing thought is the same thing as the most beautiful thought. People wake up to the realization that they do not need to be afraid of fear. We can still have our fear, but with understanding. And then people can wake up and realize it doesn't mean that the fear doesn't feel like fear. It feels like fear. But with understanding, we know where it's coming from. We know it's not a world event creating an experience to which we're completely and utterly powerless over. We realize we are the power that generated the experience of fear. It's 180 degrees difference. And there is no time we can possibly step out of our experience. It's all experience. This moment right now is it. If an individual is experiencing a mundane, everyday, blah, blah, this is a bullshit life, that is being generated within their mind via thought. If somebody is leading a really exciting life, that is being generated within their mind via thought. We're all capable of it. If somebody is completely consumed with fear of a future or whatever, that is being generated within their mind. It's not being generated by the truth of the future. It's all an illusion. If anybody's racked with guilt, it's not what happened. It's been generated within their mind now. It's a thought. It's the remembrance of a past and the story that we associate with that. It's all taking place now. God ultimately isn't a thing that happened a few thousand years ago. It's the ever-present reality. It's the only ever-present reality. I notice on the screen we've got many different religions. I think that's a really frigging beautiful thing. I'm so thankful to have so many beautiful people on these screens. And just one of the things that really, I was so pissed off. I used to go to church and I fell out with God because it's just all crap. The stories I listened to in the church, they're all crap. It was like, and I was so thankful when I woke up to this and I found what I found. Because I realized that at the heart of every single religion is exactly the same thing.
I think also you've got to listen to the same stories and realize they're pointing to something amazing.
Absolutely. And then you start to hear the stories differently. And every single religion is pointing to the same thing. can see we've got Jewish on here, so we've got Hashem, you've got Allah, we've got Christ, we've got all kinds of things, Buddha, whatever they want to call it. And then you can go to the scientists, the atheists who are here, and we can talk about the quantum field, we can call it energy. You know, these are all words, and they're all talking about exactly the same thing. And there's so many wars created in the name of this force. There's so much judgment and hatred and isolation created in the beliefs and the ideas held within individuals about what it means. But it is the unifying field. And it is what people call truth. So the implications of finding truth, we find the missing piece of our being that was never actually missing. We wake up to what we truly are. What everything truly is. The seagulls that are just squawking outside our windows, they've just flown past now, they are that too. Rusty is it. The insect world. The fungal kingdom, plant kingdom, all the kingdoms we don't know of. All the other beings throughout the universe that we're not aware of, they are that too. We're all it. It's all the same thing. And the way that it experiences is it creates beings. Infinite amount of realities taking place. What a game it's playing. And it's pure beauty. It's pure inexplicable beauty. The fact that somebody can actually sit there in depression is ultimately a completely and utterly inexplicable miracle. And we take it all for granted. We get caught up in the world. We take it all so seriously. We think we can be damaged. You can't damage wholeness. You can throw a nuclear bomb at the ocean. It just returns back to its original state. The implications of waking up to this are that people engage with life. Again, going back to what Jen said, when you start to listen with different ears, you hear that Jesus Christ was called the living one. Again, not talking religion, I'm just talking about a man who realized something. One of many human beings that have realized things and then gone, everybody, you need to know this, because this is really, really important. Because this explains what's going on. He was called the living one because he found life. And when he found life, he found death. And when he found life and death were ultimately two expressions of the same force, he told people, you don't need to worry about dying. Tell us, how will our end be? Well, I take it from your question, you found the beginning, was his response to that question. Blessed is he who takes his place in the beginning, for he shall know the end and shall not taste death. In the ever-present now. Blessed is he who takes his place now. Here is the beginning and end. Right now is the beginning and end of all time. There is no beginning and no end to the now. It's only within the mind, through memory and imagination, what look like two different aspects of thought. It's all thought. There's not two different aspects of thought. They're just characteristics of it. It's only through what we call memory and what we call imagination do we dream that there is such a thing as time. And there's just this ever-present moment. Which is why people are trying to tell people, come back to now, become a passerby. Understand you are seeing each moment for the first and last time. Passerbys, they don't dwell in the past. They don't look forward to the future. They're just living now, in the moment, which is where life truly exists. The rest is all a dream state. Even now is a dream state. But the further away we get from now in our mind, the more we are lost in the dream state. It's not that we shouldn't. It's just saying what's happening. It seems to be a beautiful thing when people wake up to the moment, they find they are okay. The implications of awareness, because that's all this is. It's not thought. It's the awareness of thought. Well, that's infinite. The implications are infinite. And it seems to be that the hearer who hears, their life changes no matter what circumstance they have faced. Because truth is truth, and truth sets people free. It reorders the mind in a moment. No techniques, no mantras. It just reorders consciousness. I can't explain how it does it. I don't know. Don't need to know. I'm not going to spend my time trying to figure God out. I know I can't.
Just thinking of that. We listened to a talk by a guy who studies near-death experiences, and is it near-death or past life?
Both.
Yeah, so he studies consciousness. And it was just a really short part at the end of one of his talks where he spoke about within Eastern philosophy, they work in a very different belief system. So in the West, we have the idea, which I think came from Aristotle, of something's either true or false, right or wrong, good or bad. And within the Eastern philosophy, it can either be true or false. It can be both, or it can be neither. And as I was listening to him speak, I realized so often I have conversations with people and they're trying to figure out, is it God's will or my will? Do I have free will? Like there's this question going on all the time. If there's this one source, this one energy, do I have any say? And like we kind of try and fit it into, is it this or that? Is it true or false? And when I heard it described, it did something for me. It took a lot off my mind. Like I don't have to fit it into the framework of what I've grown up in. Like we don't realize that we grow up in a cultural idea, and within schooling systems, within community family, we kind of take on ideas and we don't realize how limited our beliefs can become, like because we view everything through that. And suddenly this seemed to just open it up, like, wow, it can be both or it can be neither. It can be all. Sometimes it can be that, sometimes, and then it kind of made sense of that idea of something can have location and then have no location.
It fits so perfectly with the
quantum
theory,
physics, yeah. And I was like, wow, like if we allow our mind to expand beyond what we believe, beyond what we think, there is so much more to be seen. And I realized how, and like one of the things that Dr. Roger Mills said on that first course was, can you feel the difference when you're kind of like up in your intellect and you're trying to figure stuff out, and when you relax, can you feel the difference in experience of that? And whenever he saw the room getting really heady and like personal opinions and people trying to like argue things and all these questions coming out, he'd always just go, right, let's just have a little break. And we'd all go off and have tea and when we came back, you'd often see that people's mind had settled and they'd found an answer, or the question had vanished and they just sort of settled again. Because this understanding doesn't come through like grinding it over and like trying to figure it out. And I know that there was one lady who had kind of driven herself mad with, is it free will or God's will? And she said for about 2 years, that was the question that would come up, and she would spend hours trying to think about it. And I remember when she came on a call once and she went, I realised I don't have to know the answer to that. And she said, it was like it was that simple for her. I don't have to know the answer. We don't have to figure it out. We're here. We exist. We're living. Like, we don't have to know more than that. We don't have to figure it all out. But I can see how when I've got a relaxed mind, it seems I've got more intelligence, more capacity to live in the world than when I'm massively stressed out. Like, you've seen me, if I'm in a rush, I don't do being in a rush well. Like, I stub my toe, I drop things, I forget things, I try and carry way too much, and I think I'm going to make myself quicker by trying to rush, but I always make myself late because I'm just
clean it up.
Yeah. And it's a relaxed mind learns. A relaxed mind is present. But I know I used to hear the idea of presence or being in the now, and I used to get really fucked off. I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. Tell me how to do it then. Tell me how to be present. Tell me how to be here now. It used to annoy me so much because it was like, that sounds like a wonderful idea. I want that. Tell me how to do it. When I was in hospital I had a parasite that I caught from South America. And I was in hospital for about a month having an intravenous treatment. And my mum used to come in and she'd try and play the glad game with me. And like try and think of things I was glad for. Try and find gratitude. And I was like, well, I'm glad I got bitten on my foot and on my face, and like there was no feeling of gratitude. I was just like trying to do gratitude. I get what she was trying to. The feeling of gratitude is beautiful, but we can't do it. We can't manufacture it. We can't make ourselves feel something. But we can start to see, what is it that gets in the way of that feeling? What is it that obstructs what's already present? And that will be blindly believing everything we think, buying into the illusion of this separate self, this them and us. And if I try and sit and figure out like oneness, like I can't get my head around that. I'm sat here on a chair looking at a computer, you're there, and like we open our eyes and we get to see a world, and it's very convincing. And I think that's where I find so much compassion for myself and other people, because we look separate. We look like we're this individual having to do life. But I think when that question falls off my mind of trying to figure out oneness, I feel like we get to experience it. A bit like you were saying yesterday, like when you fall in love. I think Dickon mentioned it, that feeling of falling into love, falling present.
It's not a problem in the world.
And I think that's the beauty of this. Like, nothing has to change for our experience to change. Nothing external. We don't have to solve all our problems. But the other thing I loved about Dickon's talk yesterday was he just, like, the intellect is this incredible gift. And I think sometimes people feel in the principles that somehow we're saying that the intellect or the
people call personal thought,
is a bad thing. Like, without personal thought, then we wouldn't be able to have relationships. Like, without having our memory, our ego, our bank of everything that we've experienced, we couldn't learn. I couldn't remember things. I wouldn't know people. I wouldn't recognize them. Like, it's a really handy, helpful thing to have. It's not the enemy. But how he described how we can use it for things in our life that are really helpful, and there's other things it's not helpful for. And when we start to get a sense of that for ourselves, we stop trying to use our intellect for everything, and we recognise there is this deeper part of us.
It's almost like the going to work side of ourselves gives itself a day off. And the moment our going to work side of ourselves gives itself a day off and rests, it's unbelievable what can show up for people.
Has anyone got questions or comments? I think also people figured out yesterday about putting their hands up, and that like on the screen. But
Beju, I think you put your hand up, did you, mate?
and then I think Sarah and I think Leanne. So
Okay.
you unmute yourself.
So I've enjoyed the last, I know I was in and out yesterday. I've enjoyed the last 3 or 4 days. It feels like 3 or 4 days, so I'm only 2 days.
That's right.
When I look at, what I have in my life, it's good. I run my own thing. I've got, the last 3 or 4 months, I've experienced sadness. And I can pinpoint where it's coming from. And then when I listened to you guys this morning and the last 3 or 4 days about, well, it's all in your thought, it's all in your interpretation. And I get it. And I do a lot of this work. But like I said, we're all human and we fall back into the story. And the sadness, I think, comes from my girlfriend is going through her stuff. And her way of coping is to sort of deal with it in her way. And she doesn't shut me out. She just needs the space to do her stuff. And I feel I want to help and I can't. And it's been good. And most days I'm great. And there's pockets of time where I feel I just want to be there and I can't. And then that has a knock-on effect on other areas. And and yesterday she reached out to me and we had a quick chat, and then we couldn't talk later on. And then where I'm trying to go to is that if I listen to everything you say, there is no reason for me to be sad at all, because there's nothing wrong per se. She's dealing what she's need to deal with in her way, and my role is just to be the rock and just be present for it, as opposed to trying to fix it or do anything. And that's what she needs. And I've got to do what I need to do in terms of my work and my business and working with my clients, which is fine. And then you talked about your the thing about you had the parasite and the gratitude, and you don't want to feel great. If I listed the things, if someone said, well, let's do a gratitude exercise, I could have a page for it, and you think, what the fuck's your problem? You've got all these things to be grateful for. You've got 3 beautiful kids. You've got, you've got business, you've got clients, you've got stuff, and, you're all right. You look at people who have lost their jobs and people who have died of COVID and all the rest of it. And she hasn't shut you out. She hasn't shut you out. She's not doing anything to you. She's looking after herself. The consequence is she just needs space. It's the consequence. So it's the consequence I'm dealing with, and not trying to add story to it. Oh, have I, on a surface level layman conversation, it feels like she's pushing me away, but she's not. I know that intellectually, I know that emotionally. She's looking after herself. And it's just hard. It's just really, really hard. My patience, it's like my patience gets to the point that I have to refill myself with loads of energy to stay patient. Otherwise, it's like yesterday, talk about I used to be a very, very angry, I wasn't an angry man whereby, I'm a hard man and sort of that kind of thing. I was just angry all the time. And the last 5-6 years went through a divorce, and all that's been settled now. That's all fine. And then about 3 years ago, I went for a personal transformation, physical, mental, whereby I just didn't have a breakdown, but I just sort of who am I? And I reinvented myself. Literally, Louise was there at the journey. She calls it version 2.0 and before 2.1 before. So I was literally reinventing myself, and it's been fantastic. And in that reinvention, I manifested my current girlfriend. Literally manifested her. But she's got her journey to go on, and I just want to be there 24/7 with her. But it's not possible. She's got 2 young children. She lives with in a separate household, and I'm here. And it's like I wake up in the day wanting to be there, but she's got her own journey. She says she needs space, which I get. We're not in contact. We don't see each other as much as we could. And yesterday she goes, "Oh, I'll come. If you're around, I'll pop around tomorrow." I said, "Yeah, okay, no worries. I'm around. Pop around tomorrow." Recent history tells me that something will turn up that she won't turn up. Not because she doesn't want to turn up, because kids and this and that, all the rest of it. And then I make it mean, oh, she doesn't really. I don't know whether I'm making sense. I don't know. And hearing stories of, there was a lady yesterday talked about where she got angry just for no reason, she had kids and that, and I don't get angry anymore. I don't. It's in the last 44 years I've got angry once, and that's, but before that it was just living in anger, and that's just like just working on myself and realize actually I'm not getting anything from this anger. I'm pushing people away. I'm not happy. And then you just grow. You get, through wisdom and life experiences, you understand, because you just can't repeat that. And if I look at my life now, it's that one thing I feel, oh, what would make it just really perfect, but just like, yeah, is she just allowing me in a little bit. That's not available. Then I think, fucking hell, babe, you selfish prick. Just let her get on with it. She needs to heal. She needs to do her work, right? And then she'll be there. Stop forcing it.
One of the things I heard you speak about just then was we are all aware of this fact, but we're not aware that we're aware a lot of the time. And you spoke about how, sometimes this is a real problem, and other times you're just getting on with your life. Sometimes you're just doing this, and sometimes you're just doing that, and then sometimes it becomes really kind of harrowing and hard.
And I don't want her to get the true impact to have on me, because that will just put extra pressure on her. So I'm just being there.
Yeah, I'm talking about you, man. I'm talking about everybody. Because what you've described there, within what you described, was you are aware. All we're talking about is awareness. We're not telling anybody how to live their life. I don't know what the best thing for Beju to do is. I don't know, man. It's not my job. It's not my job to live anybody else's life other than my own. But I can point things out, like the way that you are aware, but perhaps not fully aware of the momentary, temporary nature of experience, of reality. How throughout the day the mind goes, it dreams up a worry, it dreams up a solution, it dreams up a question, it dreams up an answer, it dreams up fulfillment, it dreams up contentment. Throughout the day we live in this ever-changing experiential event. Some experience we think is more real than others. And it really does feel, and it really does look like we can be damaged, or people can be damaged. And from that point of view, life looks urgent. It looks really kind of, forgive me when I say I use the word serious, it looks really kind of serious. One of the greatest gifts anybody can realize is they are all right. What they're experiencing is experience. They're experiencing feelings, and they are totally built to take all feelings and all of life. We are built to live this life with all of its mad goings on and the events that take place that we do not see coming. We're built for life. And one of the things Sydney Banks would say, life is a contact sport. You're going to get your knocks. We all get our knocks. Life isn't always easy. But we are absolutely built to take it. This isn't about, like Jenny said right on day one, this is not an anesthetic to life. People think they want an anesthetic to life. Do we really want an anesthetic to life? Really, if we could choose and sit down and go, right, for the rest of your life, you are not going to feel or go through the experience of this kind of the darkness. Would you really choose that? I know I wouldn't, because I know that the greatest gifts that I've ever actually been presented to be in my life were the hard times. The times where I go, I quit. I fucking quit. Now, personally, I embrace those times because I know that there is learning within it. There is gratitude born from the coming through it and the awareness that's born. This is no anesthetic. There is no anesthetic to life. Life is a full-on game. And sometimes it appears as though we win, and sometimes it appears as though we lose. But we can take all of it. We have done in the past. Just look back at the past. Look at the hard times we got through. We're still here. We did it. And we did it without effort. We were moved. The whole time we were moved in a direction towards this moment right now.
Bijou, can I add to what, Dave, do you mind if I just add something to what I heard with what you said? What you said was that you take yourself away and you recharge your energy. That's wisdom right there in action. That's the life source that lives us, taking you to those places. That's the trust in life. When you can trust your life with its kaleidoscope of experiences and know that it's like Dickens. I loved what Dickens said yesterday about wisdom doesn't have our back, it is our back. And when we see that, it's okay to feel insecure, or I want it to look this way, I want it to look that way. When we can really see and really notice the root of experience, you've already answered all your questions within that. I saw you kind of, we go in and out of these states constantly, and it's okay. It's okay. It changes and it moves. We're like fluid. But what I saw, what I heard from you say then, was that you go and you take yourself away and you re-energize and you recharge. And that's magic.
There's one other thing. Thanks, Lise. I love that. There's one other thing that that came to me just as you were speaking as well. This I know. I know she will. I know what she will do. I know what she's like. I know nothing about the future. I can think I do. I can take the past and I can place it upon the future and assume that the future is going to be just like the past. It's what's happened in the past, so I must put the future is going to be like. I gave over second guessing the future when I realized it didn't actually ultimately exist outside of my own mind. And when that took place, it meant that I could meet the moment fresh without the contamination of a previously held belief that I then lay upon the situation and live out of and act out of.
And I just wanted to add, I think Lisa kind of spoke to it. there really isn't any way, like with this understanding, I know I shouldn't feel sad. It's like, I don't want you to hear that, because like my experience of when my ex-husband's mum passed away, it was about 2 years into his learning about the principles. He thought, well, if I see that it's thought, then I won't have to feel sad, I won't have to feel grief. And for about 7 or 8 months, he fought his grief, and he was a grumpy, irritable bastard to be around. It was like, and he apologized at the end, but I had a lot of compassion, because I was like, I could see he was just really, really, really sad, but he wouldn't let himself feel it. And it was, we ended up, we're on a trip in India, and we met this guy from America called Nick, who was just so full of life and love. It like really came alive again, and he spent a few days just mourning his mum and grieving and feeling sad, and he was like, oh, it's such a relief to let myself just feel what I feel. And he created a concept that if we understand this, then we shouldn't feel, because we'll see that it's thought, it's within our mind. We should be like, we create concepts, like we're just feeling beings, and whatever comes to mind we experience as a reality, and we don't have to try and manipulate that or judge it. Like,
what's the poem? Guest House.
Yeah, I can post it later.
Yeah.
But it's, you don't have to try and talk yourself out of feeling sad. Like, because we know that it's coming from within, like, you're allowed to just feel. Like, we're allowed to feel disappointed. We're allowed to feel sad. We're allowed to but you've got an awareness there. And I think that's what Dave picked up on. You've got an awareness that at different times throughout the day, you feel different about it. So that in itself shows that your perspective, your experience of it changes given how your mind is. But we're allowed to feel sad. We're allowed to miss people. Like, I know that when later on Rudy's dad passed away, he let himself feel sad. And I was way, like, for about 7, 8, 9 weeks, I'd be in the middle of a supermarket and I'd just burst into tears. I'd see lilies. I always used to buy him lilies. I'd burst into tears. I'd go to the supermarket where we normally used to go, and then we'd go and see him. And I'd suddenly remember we weren't going to be able to see him, and I burst into tears. Like, I grieved. I felt. This isn't an anesthetic. We're allowed to feel anything, and we can totally handle it. And I think that's the message, is that there is everything within us is built to feel, experience, live. And without our judgment of, well, I should know better. Well, I know actually it's not personal. Well, I know, like, we're always so hard on ourselves. We think we should be better than what we are. And I think this is just allowing ourselves to fall back into, no, we're all right. We're all right in sadness, love, joy, peace, anger.
It's come back to that misidentification, doesn't it, of what we truly are, who we truly are, and what we're experiencing.
I was just going to say, I know that Leanne had her hand up, and I think Sarah did.
Can I just read this?
Yeah.
Then we'll go on. This is a Rumi poem. Many of you've probably heard it many, many times. Rumi was a Sufi poet. He was an Islamic scholar from Persia in the 13th century. So this is a 13th century poem. It is as applicable then as it is now. It's called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honourably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them all at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. All of that.
I love that.
You know, there are no wrong feelings. There are no wrong thoughts. There's no such thing as a wrong thought. There's no such thing as a wrong feeling. If they were wrong, they would never be in existence. There is no wrong. Wrong is a perception of our ego. It's an ideology that we've either grown up with, been taught, or we've adopted ourselves, we've created in our own mind. Ultimately, there is no wrong, there is only perfection. We must start to identify more with the perfection than the creation that appears imperfect. But even if we don't, it makes no difference. It's the same thing taking place. Sarah, Elsewari. Sarah, she's muted us.
Sorry, I didn't realize it was me. It was actually, this was all really good. It was more or less along the same lines of what I've been seeing recently, because I think I got really, somehow this idea of trying to find the good feeling, right? I think what has been happening, and I'm sorry if I wobble because I'm not sure, I haven't been speaking at all about most of this for a very long time, and because I don't know what's going to come out. It's feel like I've been seeing so much recently that it's been a bit overwhelming. Not even sure how to speak about it, but one of the things that I've this idea of finding the good feeling is I think it's kind of misled me completely, because as much as I know it's not about fixing, but still, whenever I got very impatient with myself, I got very impatient with my grieving and my emotions and how long this will trail on, and and I would often then get into fixing. And I have a lot of friends who are healing practitioners, and what I hear, it's a bit of a mixed bag, because a lot of it is you've got to do the work. You've got to go through, and now I've been stepping back and really listening to what that means. What does it mean to do the work? And I'm not sure, but I think what they mean by that is you just got to feel it. You got to go through it, more or less, except there are all these techniques and ways of going through it, right? And people there to hold your hand and help you go through it, which sometimes has been very helpful. And a couple of years ago, I walked into a session that was quite, the way I saw it was quite damaging. I mean, it ended up in like 6 months of panic attacks. And I didn't know where the even that was coming from, but it seems to like open the lid of something that didn't even feel like it belonged to me. And I literally could not go on with my life as it was. I stopped. I had to stop. I moved and I realized, and as soon as I moved back home to Cairo, where my family is, and I realized when I got here, I slept so much and I dropped into so much sadness. It was not pleasant. I mean, there was none of it that was nice. It was not easy. It was not pleasant, but it was such a relief to just feel like shit. I just felt like crap. And it was such a relief, and it was really freeing to be able to do that. But I could see, looking around me, no one knew what to do with that. My family didn't know what to do with that. My friends didn't know what to do with that. And somehow, now as I'm connecting with you guys and I'm listening to everybody, I'm seeing the value of this, of having this connection, because if you have that understanding, but but others don't, or maybe, or they do, but they just don't know how to be okay with your emotions, your breakdowns, then it does always look like I need to do something to get out of this. And because the outside world is just telling me this is not okay. And I get impatient because it feels like crap. So I do want to get out of it, you know. And then more recently, I kind of dropped that idea of trying to find the good feeling, or what I heard before of this, because I've been really questioning it. And like, what if it's not about finding the good feeling? And what if it's not about happiness, like you had said? What if it's really just about being whole, really wholeness, not happiness? And I find that I know the words, and I know that, but I did get caught up on the words. And this idea of wholeness, it's been lingering with me for the past 2 weeks or so. And I feel so much better. So, I mean, and then the good feeling kind of comes. I don't know how to explain it. I'm just kind of putting it out there. But yeah, and so I suppose where I still kind of get caught up, or I find myself getting a little bit confused between, you know, how far in do I let myself drop into grief or depression or guilt or any of those really like difficult ones, right? Or what seems to, they're not that difficult really. You just drop in them, you feel them, and they're on their own. They're not that hard, but they're not always easy to sit with for a very long time. Until, but the doubt comes. I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure it out how to put this. At one point, I doubt if it's okay to stay this for as long as I am, you know. But also, it's showing me there's so much about myself that I'm seeing that I didn't know. I have no idea who the hell I am at the moment. I mean, this is where I'm at. I have no clue, because I mean, I'm realizing so much. I think I must have had so many ideas about myself that are it's an absolute bunch of crap that I have no idea. I can't put it into words per se, but, and I'm okay with not knowing. I know I'm feeling a lot more. Can't particularly say what it is I'm actually feeling a lot of the time. I can't even put my hand on that. It's happening. But yes, the question is like when I need help, I do reach out for help. But I am always afraid that I'm going back into fixing, because I think that's okay. Now it's been too far. It's been a year now. You know, are you gonna just sit in bed for a year? You know, that's not what's actually happening. But you know what I mean. And I know my mind is trying to keep me safe. My thinking is trying to keep me safe, because it's like, okay, is there any warning signs here that we should look for? Are you going too far into a dark place? You know, when should you, you know, reach out and make sure that somebody's got your hand, or is it okay to go there? You know, all of these doubts come up, and this is generally when I find myself kind of, and a lot of fear about not being safe, and then that's what takes me right back into fixing mode.
We're always trying to live life, Sarah. We're always trying to live life, control life. What is this life we're trying to control? What is it? What is this thing? Is it out of control? What is life? What is this thing we're so afraid of?
I would say.
Pardon?
Death. To me, that's been a big, like if I get really into a very dark place, there's always a fear of death there.
Fear of death. It's the most pointless fear anybody can carry around. What a ridiculous fear. I mean that with the kindest and greatest of respect. It's the most ridiculous fear that anybody can carry around is the fear of death. Okay? Where were you before you were born? What were you before you were born? Where did you come from? We don't ponder that mystery. What are you now? We don't ponder that mystery, but we ponder the mystery of death. And we fear it. We don't fear where we came from, but we fear death. And the individual who fears death fears life because they never fully immerse themselves in life because they've always got this nagging little thing in the back of the mind, I'm going to die. So they never truly get to experience life. Is it really logical that we should be afraid of both life and death or either? No, we just concepts within our minds that we dream up about what we think death might be. They're not truths. And as you spoke just then, sir, how far do I allow myself to fall? If in one moment an individual can allow themselves to fall, they will not suffer. They will come straight out of the suffering. Because all suffering is resistance to what is. What's the opposite of resistance to what is? Acceptance. The moment somebody accepts, they heal. Acceptance is instant healing, instantaneous healing. So what is suffering? Well, it has to be the opposite. And what's the opposite? The opposite of acceptance is resistance. I don't want to feel this feeling, so I am going to fight it with all my might. And the more we fight it, the more it fights back. Why? Because we're the ones keeping it alive with our fear of the fear. Why are we afraid of feelings? Why are we afraid of thoughts? Why are we afraid of experience? Fear, to me, only exists when I describe fear, I'm talking about anger, I'm talking about sadness, depression, jealousy, regret, anxieties. It only exists when I'm fully immersed in the illusion of life. And when fear only exists as what looks like an external event. When I talk about external event, I'm talking about time as well, future and past. When I am fully bought into ideas about an external world, the future and the past, when it appears to me like the world is affecting me, my relationship, my finances, my work, the weather, the traffic, the lockdown, right there and then I'm completely lost in the illusion of life, that these things have the ability to somehow dictate my experience. If they had the ability to dictate experience, would it not be true that everybody would experience the same thing? If an external event truly had the ability to create experience and feeling states and thoughts. But I know people who hate the lockdown, know people who love it. It cannot be the lockdown. It has to be something that's taking place within our being, in our reality, and waking us up to the fact that it is our reality. I am the master of my ship. I am the captain of my soul, was it?
Like, yeah.
Invictus. Invictus poem.
I think also just to respect and know that we've got intelligence to live. And like, I don't know if Sarah, if you were at the retreat where there's Liliana shared with the group, and so much emotion had come up within her in the retreat, and she'd gone back to her room and she was just like sobbing, and it was just in this deep sobbing mess, and she couldn't even bear the idea of trying to get up, and it was just all too much. And then suddenly the thought came, I'm really hungry, and she was like, I'm gonna go and get something to eat. And she said she realized in her life there's been times where it's almost like we can overindulge. And I think kind of maybe that's in your question of like, sometimes is it that I'm just, and I know that when we initially got together, there was like, I moved, everything changed in my life. And after about, I think it was about 8 or 9 months of, often in the evenings, I'd start getting sad. I'd start getting guilty. I'd start with all of these kind of feelings. And you were really kind and really patient. And then at one point, when I was in a quite light-hearted mood in the car, Dave just said to me, "Do you think you're milking this a bit now?" Or something like that. And it wasn't from a horrible place. It wasn't from like, and I kind of just saw that I overindulged in my own feeling. I'd got sort of innocently self-obsessed in a way with my guilt, with my shame, with my family, with how other people were feeling. And I think that's the nice thing. Like, I feel like we have got within us the sense to know when this is really helpful, I just need to feel this now. And when we're like totally lost and kind of absorbed, but to know that that's going to be so individual. And so like, I couldn't tell someone else like enough's enough. But I think one of the things I used to love watching my sister with her kids is that, like, especially Lewin, when she was younger, she had a lot of emotion about a lot of things, all different types. And sometimes my sister would say, "You're allowed to feel that, but can you do it in your room? Because we don't want to be around it." And like, she'd take herself off into a room for 10 minutes, an hour, whatever. And then she'd come back and she'd be fine. She kind of had the sense to know that she needed to feel whatever she was feeling. And I think to know that we have that within us, we know when it's time to reach out and ask someone, "We need a bit of a hand right now. I feel lost. I feel at sea."
Sometimes you and I do that.
Yeah, like there isn't any rules.
We talk to each other.
There isn't like, "Oh, that means I'm now trying to fix myself." It just means there's part of you that knows, I need a bit of support right now. I need a bit of assistance, whatever. And I think if we can take out the rules and take out the rights and the wrongs and getting this,
The shoulds and the shouldn'ts.
then we do just live.
Which is the whole game.
I think that's the beautiful thing, like we can. And we've been so bombarded with information, like you say, from how we should go through this, the process, the this, the that. There's so many incredible...
The life purpose.
There's so many incredible ideas and concepts and beliefs and people that have had insight and wanted to share it. It's like we're drowning in other people's knowledge and information. And I think sometimes it's like we don't listen to that place within us that just knows how to live us. And I feel like that's what I got reintroduced to on my first course, and then I forget, and then I get reintroduced again. And that's why I've loved being in this community and having friends and family, because we are like the media, the mainstream is almost like telling us the opposite. And then I feel grateful that I get to speak to people and do this work, because I'm constantly reminded.
It's so easy to forget.
So easy to forget.
This illusion of life is so real. It's reality. It's supposed to be like this. It was never supposed to be easy. I don't know if anybody's heard that there's a group called Outlandish. They're from America. It's quite a diverse group of fellas, and there's this line in one of their songs. It's called, what's the song called?
Lemon.
No, that's NERD. Outlandish. Warrior. It's called Warrior.
I think nothing was going to say the truth to set you free.
It's really nice. Sure. No, it's a really nice song, Warrior by Outlandish. But it's got this sentence in it, and it says, "God never promised you days without pain, laughter without sorrow, and sun without rain. But he did promise strength for you every day." You can deal with life. You can deal with it. We can all deal with it. There's nothing we can't deal with. We're built for it. If we weren't, we won't be here. Let's take a break. When we get back, we've got Lee speaking at 11:15, so in 15 minutes. Thank you very much. Leanne, are you right just to hold on and ask your question in a wee bit? Is that okay? Take a break. And I know Emma wanted to say something. So if you both wouldn't mind, just we'll let Lee speak, and then we'll start taking questions and comments again, if that's okay with yourselves. Thanks, lovely.
So if we come back,
1:15.
well, it's supposed to be 1:15. We've run over.
Oh,
So
right.
if we come back
Watch
at
this
20 past,
Yeah.
give you almost 15 minutes.
Yeah. You're still recording?